You mentioned Jalen Brunson. I love this guy. I really hope the Mavs re-sign him. Part of the reason why I actually absolutely love him is because here he goes to college. He plays at Villanova. Villanova hasn't had really any type of major success in 30 years. Jalen Brunson shows up on the scene along with his teammates and the program that Jay Wright had built. But on Jalen Brunson's back, they win 2 national championships, and Jalen Brunson is the player of the year. And every team in the league overlooks Jalen Brunson. Mm-hmm. And everything that I love about Jalen Brunson, and I do love his game, but I love everything else outside of his game. I love how tough he is. I love how he misses 9 shots and he comes back and he doesn't even flinch taking the 10th shot. I love how he must be near the league leaders in taking charges in the paint, even though he's one of the smallest guys in the league. So just talk about the intangibles that somebody like that brings, because you would think that everybody would say, man, this guy is a 2-time national champion. He's the national player of the year. He has proven it time and time again, but yet everybody seemed to overlook him. So talk about what you noticed from Jalen Brunson early on his rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a winner. I mean, the straight up bottom line, he is a winner. He makes winning plays and he has a winning attitude. He has winning work ethic, everything about him. He's just a winner. And, you know, the way he treats people, the way he listens, the way he focuses, everything is just to the next level. And the only reason, in my opinion, that he went 33rd or whatever the pick was, 36, I think it was, it is because he was 22 years old. And the new hot thing is, you know, drafting the players that are 18 or they're 17 and they've been there for half a year and whatever. I mean, there's no explanation why he shouldn't have been a higher pick. And that's when Michael Finley even said, we got our guy. Like, that was our guy that we wanted. We got Brunson. And again, he's just one of those guys that you watch a game and you look at his face and just the intensity and the pure just motivation to just absolutely win at all costs it's next level. And I would say that has something to do with his dad being in the NBA and being a great NBA player, and he knows what it takes and he was around it at a young age. But at the same time, you know, he's taken that, he's executed it, and he's earned whatever contract that he's going to get from the Mavs. Yeah, hopefully. I really hope so. And I think after just this last weekend, winning Game 7 in Phoenix, I think they're definitely going to bring this group back. Let's talk about somebody who doesn't have the pedigree, who doesn't have an NBA dad. Let's talk about Dorian Finney-Smith, because here's a guy that was undrafted. And even though, you know, Brunson was drafted and quote unquote overlooked, he still did a lot of great things in college. Dorian Finney-Smith didn't have any near the accolades or pedigree, like we said. Talk about him and just kind of the absolute blossoming that has occurred over the last 4 years from when you worked with him as a rookie. Yeah, and just relentless work ethic for Dorian. Just absolutely relentless. Him and Shamgat especially work together a lot. And he just wanted to be the best that he could be. And he still wants to be the best that he can be. And he is clearly a top tier defender. And there's nothing that explains that more than heart. He has to have, you know, you have to have heart to be a top NBA defender. You have to want it so bad. And, you know, one of the things I remember about him, and I'm not sure if it's still that way, but he had a picture of a pitbull in his locker. And it's like the pitbull mentality, like, kind of, I'm just going to be a dog. Like, I'm going to go out there and just make it happen no matter what. And I don't know if you remember, but back at Florida and Virginia Tech for the year, he played the 4 and the 5. He was not a shooter. I don't even know if he shot 30% in college. So he comes in and now he's hitting 8 threes in a game, and Game 5 against the Suns. And it's just like, man, what a change. And that's true player development. That's a guy who just put the hours in. And again, I mean, I'm obviously really high on this Mavs team. I think they're going to make a run to the finals personally. So one of the reasons why I'm like talking about Jalen Brunson, I think it's so key to sign him. And I thought it was key to sign Dorian Finney-Smith. When you are talking about a team or a company, but sports in particular,
you have to be able to tell stories. Like, you have to be able to point to people and say, this is what we stand for. Dirk Nowitzki walks in the door and you see him work tirelessly, even at the age of 40, 41 years old. And it, like, that sends a message to everybody. But I think at the same time, developing younger guys also sends a message, right? Like, this is what we do. If you show up and you do what we tell you, and you have this pitbull mentality, or you have this heart and you bring this every day, this is what can happen. You can become a Jalen Brunson. You can become a Dorian Finney-Smith. Is that talked about in the Mavericks? Because they have a really good history of developing guys that were overlooked or undrafted. They've done this time and time again, really over the last 15 years or so, but in particular with the current team. Is that something that they talked about? Because I see it from the outside, and I think the player development is key in terms of having something to point to that represents your culture.
Yeah, I mean, even going further back, it starts with scouting. It starts with looking at guys who are – the Mavericks have a culture. They have their culture in place. It is a top-tier culture, and out of any organization I've been through, starting from Mark Cuban all the way down. And obviously there's been some things here and there, just like every other organization, but they have the standard. They have the type of guys that they want in the gym. They have the guys with the mentality that are hard workers, that are good people, and it speaks for itself. But, you know, couldn't give more props to the scouting department. I mean, a guy from Würzburg, Germany, like Maxi, who's undrafted, unknown, 6'10", you know, obviously there's some type of connection there, and he just happens to be an absolute relentless defender, someone who doesn't care if he gets dunked on, because he's been dunked on more than anybody I've seen. But he'll go up and make twice as many blocks, and he's out there getting switched down to Chris Paul and tipping every single shot that he takes, or every other shot that he takes. You know, he's absolutely paramount. But it's like, who found this guy? And that's what it comes down to, is why didn't another team take a shot on him? Why didn't another team take a shot on Dorian? Why didn't another team draft Brunson at 20? You know, and it's just all of those things, you know, kind of added up. I mean, amazing job by the scouting department. But yeah, the Mavs have their culture in place, and they know the type of guys that they want. And that's why, you know, some of these guys are great picks. Some of them don't work out, but a majority of what they've done lately has worked out.
I love that you said this. Obviously, this is where I shamelessly plug my book, Finding Intangibles, because it all goes back to the people that you bring in. Your people become your culture. Mm-hmm. I also think that the Mavericks, this is why they go get people from overseas and have a lot of success with those people. You know, we don't have to get into like the whole American society now and like the type of NBA stars that come into the league. But I think I've heard Mark Cuban talk about AAU culture versus European culture. Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference between Luka being a pro player at 16 years old, playing against men in the European leagues over there, versus being an AAU star, you know, teaming up with a bunch of other, you know, future NBA players, flying on private jets. Not saying that doesn't happen in Europe, but I think like when you immediately go onto a pro team, and just the European mentality is much like you just described for Maxi Kleber. Like it's, I'm going to give it my all. If I get embarrassed, it literally doesn't matter. I'm coming back the next time down, and I'm going to give the exact same effort, if not more effort, if I possibly can. And I think that that is definitely indicative of the success the Mavericks have had. And you can even make the argument like they have vastly outperformed the talent they have, in large part because of the type of players and the intangibles that exist within that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, kind of just going off that point, I mean, nobody expected them to go to the Western Conference Finals. People were saying Suns in 4 and all these things, but these guys are so tight in the locker room. They cultivate a chemistry that is just beyond basketball. And yeah, European players and AU culture, we could talk for 3 hours about that. You know, I think the European players, they play such a different game that they have a different view on things. Like, obviously, you know, you can be 6'9" and be dunking on everybody and catching alley-oops and be an Instagram star and be in the AAU culture, that's great. You can go on and have an amazing NBA career. You can go on and be a Hall of Famer for all I care. But, it really comes down to when you're 16 years old playing with 33-year-old men, and they're, they know the game better than you, and they're pushing you around, and they're pushing you to different extremes, and they teach you how to be a pro. That's where the difference is these kids that are 17, 16 years old, they're not being taught how to be a pro. They're taught how to be a high-flying AAU basketball player. And I think that's where just the development early on, that's why guys from Europe come in and are so good right away, typically.